All right, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon. So, as I said, win, lose, or draw, I would be back here making my reaction video to Super Bowl 55. The Chiefs getting absolutely manhandled by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 31-9, and the game wasn't as close as what it even that score would indicate. Um, so, obviously, a lot to unpack here. I was completely wrong in my prediction. I thought the Chiefs two touchdowns were two touchdowns better than the Buccaneers. And you know, the old adage people say, well, if you play this game 10 times, and I say, well, if you play the game 17 times like I did, or 23 times like I did in Madden, and Chiefs won 17 of them. But like I said, Madden is not real life, and I do suspect that if they would play this game 10 times, maybe it's even, maybe it's 5-5. Tampa Bay is not going to win every single one of them, but um, Tampa Bay. Tom Brady said it tonight. He said they played their best game of the season by far, and it showed. They played a complete game. Their passing offense was efficient and good. I mean, I think Brady. I don't even think he threw for 200 yards in the game, but it was efficient. And they, I think we sacked Brady once or one time. No, Clark got to him. I think they got to him again, maybe twice. I think they sacked him twice. Um, but other than that, they didn't touch Brady all night. And the offensive line for Tampa Bay was phenomenal. They kept Brady upright, and then they didn't really have to do too much. Gronkowski, and I said in my prediction video, I didn't think Gronkowski would be the difference. I was actually kind of poking fun at some not YouTubers, but some of the national shows. People were talking about who's going to be they said you couldn't talk about quarterbacks, but who's going to be the guy that the other team's going to have a hard time stopping. And several people said Gronkowski. I kind of just, haha, Gronkowski, the old man, and he's a shadow of his former self. And I actually said that, or said it. I think I said that he was a shell of his former self. But yeah, he torched the Chiefs across the middle on several plays. Obviously, scored two touchdowns, and the Chiefs had no answer for him in the middle. The Chiefs' linebacking core is not good enough to cover a tight end like that. And I did say that the Chiefs, their biggest weakness is against tight ends, and I don't think I don't think Tampa Bay is 22 points better than the Kansas City Chiefs. They were tonight, absolutely. Um, and but sometimes you have a play that goes here or there, and it completely shifts the tide of the game. For me, I think that play was the holding call on the interception where Matthew got the interception on the deflected pass. They called, I don't know if it was Breland or Ward, um, but they called defensive holding before the pass. And on social media, on Twitter and Facebook, and well, mostly on Twitter because, like I said, Facebook is mostly people I know. But um, I know on Twitter, a lot of the Buccaneers fans and people who are not Chiefs fans, especially Bills fans and Cleveland fans, who we beat in the playoffs. Most of them were saying things like, "Well, the Chiefs have been playing like that the whole playoffs, and now they finally got penalized. Now they're crying about it." Well, it is true. The Chiefs do play very physical in the secondary. Um, it's the old adage of, you play like that, you make them throw a flag on it because they can't throw a flag every play. Well, they probably could, but the Chiefs' defensive backs are big, physical backs, and Breland and Snead do a really good job in coverage. But these guys know how to tackle, and they're physical. Um, and the physicality got the better of them in the first half. Now, was that a holding call? I, it was borderline. It was ticky. I mean, they called it. If you call it by the letter of the law, yeah, it's probably a hold. He impeded his ability to move. But both guys were hand fighting. Again, it's one of those calls that if I was a Tampa fan, I would say, oh, of course, yeah, that was definitely holding. And if the call wouldn't have been made, if I was a Tampa fan, I probably would have wanted it. And as a Chiefs fan, I would probably says, well, they can't call them all, So it goes both ways. It really does. But the fact that it negated an interception, so weird how another penalty, negates a Tom Brady interception against the Chiefs, which would have been a big turning point. Now, granted, this one was in the second quarter, not what would have been his final play of the game. 2 years ago. But it was a big turning point, and obviously the Chiefs couldn't stop the offense of Tampa Bay all night. They forced a couple punts early on. They got a goal line stand, which was so because the Chiefs were the 32nd defense in the league against on goal line stands. Essentially, they were terrible at it, and they stopped them on a third and goal and fourth and goal, both at the one. So, props to the Chiefs defense for trying to hold up there. The biggest story of the night, you know, it has to be the front four of Tampa. I mean, I was completely wrong, and I freely admit that I was wrong. I missed it. I got it wrong. Now I'm not in the get it right business because I'm just a guy in my basement making these videos. While I work a day job. So this isn't what I do for a living. And it was just I was definitely I admit I was going with my gut. Part of it was my experience last year watching the San Francisco defensive line and how they beat up the Chiefs for part of that game, but they ran out of gas. But that being said, the Chiefs were a lot closer in that game. They were only down a field goal for most of the third quarter, and then they got down 10 points after, was it Juszczyk or no, Mostert scored that second touchdown to go up 20-10. But the Chiefs were right there in that game, and this one got away from them fast. And what they needed to do. So I'm gonna talk about a couple things of where I really thought. Obviously, that non-interception was a big point. Who knows where the game goes if the Chiefs get that. Tampa Bay probably still wins, but it's hard to tell because the games don't go on exactly. You can't just say, oh well, it played out exactly the same way. You have no idea. You have no idea how it would have played out because game situations completely change after that point. But a couple things that I want to talk about where I think the Chiefs really did not do themselves any favors. The first one was after they got the field goal and they were down 14-6 towards the end of the first half. Again, I thought Andy Reid should have gone for it on fourth down there. You've got it. The game felt different to me at that point than it did last year in the Super Bowl. I didn't think the 49ers were better than the Chiefs, and I just felt that we just needed to outlast them until we got our offense rolling. This one felt a little different. This one felt like, Tampa definitely brought their A game, and it was going to take a lot of good fortune, in my opinion, to come back. And that's just the way how it felt there, especially towards halftime. And when he went for it, when he didn't go for it and kicked the field goal instead, I'm like, okay. And my buddy was sitting there next to me. He's like, hey, we're only down 8 now. We'll go into halftime. We get the ball. If we get a touchdown, if we can get 2 points, the game's tied. And I was like, man, for as bad as we've played this first half, to have the ability to tie the game, the first drive of the second half is incredible. And even Tony Romo made mention that you don't want to give Tom Brady too much time. The Chiefs made a big play on first down to stop Brady, and then they called a timeout. And I was like, well, that's pretty aggressive. Because I don't think they had any interest. I think they were seeing what they could do. They weren't really they weren't in a big hurry though. The second play, second down play where they got basically was like they didn't get a first down, but it got close. You knew they were going to get it in the next because the Chiefs weren't stopping them. The Chiefs called another timeout. And Tampa was not in a hurry even before the timeout. I thought that was a mistake. I thought that's where Andy Reid made his really big first mistake of the night, was calling a timeout there. I didn't have a problem with the first one. But you call the first one in hopes that you can get an incomplete pass or get a big sack or a loss or something, and then you can call a timeout if it's third and long. But on third and short, you have to assume that they're going to pick it up. And if you stop the clock, they still have. I think they had one timeout left, so they only had. It's not like they had all three, but this is Tom Brady we're talking about here. You can't give him those opportunities, and obviously it backfired. They go down, and obviously there was a questionable call in the end zone on a pass interference on Tyrann Mathieu. If I was, the referees were getting. Rightfully so, they were getting annihilated on Twitter not by Chiefs. Of course, Chiefs fans are going to be biased, okay? Every fan of their own team is biased for their hometown team. And I had never seen it. I mean, Boomer Esiason and who was the other guy? I can't remember the other guy's name. Who also said the same thing Boomer did about how he thought that there was a lot of questionable calls in the first half. You don't see studio guys, especially the Super Bowl, say things like that. That's very, very rare. And even Tony Romo in the second half admitted that it was very one sided. It was very one sided. One side officiated in the first half, and that's not the reason why the Chiefs lost the game. But it is interesting to note that they actually pointed that out. So I thought that was worthy at least to mention here in my wrap up video. Um, that it was probably the difference between 4 points, honestly. If Matthew doesn't get flagged for that, maybe the Chiefs get a stop and maybe they just kick a field goal. Ultimately, it didn't matter. It didn't matter in the end. And but his pass interference call was not catchable. It was not a catchable pass. And the one down the sideline, it was incidental contact. Two guys, they got their feet stripped up on each other. That's not pass interference. The bottom line is the refs they blew those two calls. Absolutely. And but here's the thing. There are blown calls in every single game. And I said that back in my wrap up video on the Browns game, the Chiefs and Browns. I said, by the letter of the law, the hit on I forget the receiver's name, but the one that Daniel Sorensen hit the guy and he fumbled and threw the end zone for a touchback. By the letter of the law in the NFL rule book, that should have been a penalty on Daniel Sorensen. But the Chiefs got a break there, and sometimes even the best teams, they need a break here or there to go their way, and the problem that happened with the Chiefs tonight is that they didn't get any breaks. They had to be perfect, and they brought their D+ game. They really did. Now, a lot of what when I say their D+, excuse me, a lot of say their D+ game, I can't sit here and say that they had that game plan in a vacuum, or because Tampa came out and played fantastic football on both sides, and there is no sour grapes here from me today. They played outstanding football. They kicked the Chiefs' tail up and down the field, especially in that second half. Anybody who's unbiased. So I mean, unless you're just a completely biased Chiefs hater, you'll say people can't talk about officiating. You can talk about officiating. It does impact games. There were questionable calls in the first half. And I think somebody must have said something to the refs, because in the second half they swallowed their whistles. I mean, I think there was 2 penalties in the second half. There wasn't that many. I know there was that taunting at the very end, after Hill didn't make that fourth down catch, and that's ugly. I'll talk about that later. But the defensive line of Tampa Bay, I didn't think they would be. I said they were good. I said they were good. I did not see that coming. Now, the Chiefs were without Eric Fisher, and I guess where I failed in my analysis, and when I was looking at it, was Wiley, who's typically a guard, had to play tackle. Now, I should have accounted for that. I should have accounted that he was going to play out of position, and I should have factored that into my analysis, saying, hey, we got a guy that's playing out of position on the offensive line. That's going to be a problem. And because he was playing right tackle. And I missed that. That should have been a warning sign for me. But I didn't factor that into it. I didn't know that they were going to jumble up the line like they did. I thought they were just going to put in, was it Rankin or somebody there at left tackle and just go forth. But no, they really swapped around the line and played Wiley out of position at right tackle, and it showed. He's a guard, and so that was my fault. I shouldn't have missed that. I should have caught that, and so the Chiefs' deficiencies on the offensive line and the injuries they had Losing Fisher, obviously losing Schwartz back at the beginning of the year. But they've been without Schwartz the whole season, so that's not really that big of a deal. Okay, let me hold on. It is a big deal. The Chiefs definitely would have been better tonight if they would have had Mitchell Schwartz in their lineup. I mean, don't get me wrong, but they've played almost the entire season without him. So, and they've won all these games without him as well. So, I said that the Chiefs would be able to scheme around the deficiencies on the offensive line and kind of the patchwork offensive line, and the bottom line is that they couldn't. Patrick Mahomes, I saw a stat, and I thought this was an incredible stat, that said that he ran for 497 yards tonight. Total. He didn't pick up 497 yards rushing, but it includes all the times that he's running, which includes his rushes, but it also includes the time he's running around behind the line of scrimmage. Think about that. 497 yards he ran tonight. He ran basically the length of 5 football fields trying to get away from that defensive line of Tampa. That was incredible. They didn't blitz tonight. They had a 4-man rush. They dropped their safeties deep, and they dared the Chiefs. And they gave Patrick Mahomes no time to hit those slants. They doubled Hill and they doubled Kelsey. They made guys like Hardman, Watkins, Robinson beat them. And look, Hardman and Watkins and Robinson are good complementary receivers. And Byron Pringle. Pringle actually had the first catch of the game. Those guys are good complementary receivers. They played very poorly tonight. And it's hard to say that an offensive game plan that you look at your 3rd, 4th, 5th wide receivers and say that they're the reasons you lost the game. No, they're not the reason. The Tampa defense is the reason why the Chiefs lost this game. But those secondary type receivers, they ran poor routes all night long. Now, a lot of that's due because of the way Tampa's playing their defense. They're forcing the Chiefs into being less crisp. They're forcing the Chiefs into making mistakes. So, like I said, we don't play these games in a vacuum. There's another team out there forcing the Chiefs to play poorly, and that's what happened. But I was really, really disappointed in the play of those receivers. Outside of Hill and Kelsey, I was just because they were getting double teamed. It's hard to run your good routes if you got 2 guys bracketing you the whole night, and they basically said, we're not going to let these 2 guys beat us, and everybody else is going to have to beat us, one-on-one, and if they do that, oh well, I guess the Chiefs will win. That's essentially what Tampa's defensive mindset was, and it worked because Watkins and Robinson and Hardman and Pringle, they could not run crisp routes. They couldn't get out of their breaks. They couldn't make their breaks. They couldn't get off the blocks. They couldn't do anything, and it was really disappointing to see because, the Chiefs scheme, they do these sprint out plays where they get Mahomes in position to make really good throws, put him in passing lanes, and our receivers were just lazy running their routes tonight. And it showed. It absolutely showed. They had the look of a team that would go out there and say, we're the champs. We have Patrick Mahomes. We're going to roll our helmets on the field and we're going to win by 20. That's the attitude that really came across, and they got punched in the mouth repeatedly and had no answer. They had none. They had no answer. Tampa played an incredible game, and it was all up front. I was completely wrong about their defensive line. The Chiefs never could figure out a way to stop it. They never could scheme around it. And there was some people. I will not pull up any videos with Skip Bayless because I'm sure he's just going to be all over Patrick Mahomes. Look, the bottom line is that anybody who is intelligent, an intelligent football fan, they'll watch that game and they'll say, you know what, Patrick Mahomes does not quit. That guy is full of guts, and he leaves everything on the field. I mean, he almost threw a touchdown pass. If his receiver hadn't dropped it, I mean, how many drops did the Chiefs receivers have tonight? It was incredible. If the receiver hadn't dropped it, he would have thrown a touchdown pass basically horizontal to the ground. I mean, think about that. In the pass to Pringle, which was almost a touchdown, how he got that ball off. I don't understand how in the world Mahomes is able to do some of this stuff. I mean, he left everything on the field, and I'm enamored. As a fan, I'm in love with Patrick Mahomes, and I'm so glad that he's the quarterback of my football team. And it grew tonight. It really did. Even though the Chiefs lost this game, I can firmly say, like, I'm glad that guy is my quarterback, because that guy, you never have to question his effort. You never have to question his preparation, his motivation. He went out there tonight without an offensive line and with only two receivers interested in playing and trying to make catches. And he tried to do everything himself because basically he had zero help outside of Kelsey and Hill. And Hill was just getting manhandled all night long. Just could not get away from coverage. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes definitely earned a lot of respect in my book tonight, with just the way he battled through it. And as he said, he's not going to blame his toe injury. Of course, he's not going to blame his toe injury because he's a professional. He's not going to blame injuries. And I mean, we saw how he played last week against Buffalo, and how he just annihilated Buffalo with the same toe injury. No, the toe injury has nothing to do with it. What it has to do with it is Tampa Bay's defense was out of this world. They played an incredible game, and they beat the Chiefs. They just lined up and whooped our butts, is what they did. So, now as for Tom Brady, 7 Super Bowl titles now. 10 Super Bowl. He's been to 10 Super Bowls. Now he has 7 rings. It's incredible. I don't know how. I mean, is he the greatest athlete of all time, regardless of sport? Is he better than Michael Jordan now? I don't know. That's a really fascinating debate. Is he better than Michael Jordan? I mean, as an athlete in his sport, transcending sports. Back when at the turn of the century, when ESPN did their ESPN 100, their 100 top players of the century, top athletes of the century. Michael Jordan obviously finished number one. I can't remember who was number two. Um, Obviously, Tom Brady wasn't on there. Brady hadn't even gotten. Oh, maybe he may have been in the league, but he was obviously no one knew who Tom Brady was outside of University of Michigan fans. Um, is Tom Brady better and better overall athlete all time professional sports than Michael Jordan? I think it's up for debate. I do. I definitely think it's up for debate. Um, I don't know. I can't just sit here and say, well, Jordan had 6 rings and Brady has 7, so therefore he's better. Therefore Brady's better because he has one more championship. There's more to it than that, obviously. Um, but yeah, that's an interesting debate. And I said this before. He is the greatest quarterback of all time. Regardless, this game didn't do anything to wasn't going to do anything to detract from that. Even if Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs would have won this game, Brady is still the best quarterback of all time. And here's the thing: there was this discussion on, I think, ESPN's First Take, and I watched the clip on YouTube. They've talked about how, um, would if Patrick Mahomes loses this game and Brady wins, there was some people saying that he could never catch. He would never catch Brady. He would never pass Tom Brady because he lost this game. And I'm sure that they're not going to change their opinion now, because why would you? I mean, the result that you were talking about came to fruition. Um, Look, he absolutely could. I mean, it's going to take a lot of effort. I mean, if you look at Tom's rings, he went 10, 11 years between championships after he won his first 3, and then it took him like 10, 11 years to win his fourth. And so I completely forgot that it was that long between championships that he had. Um, so yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. In the future now with where Brady ultimately falls out. Yeah, could someone pass him? Well, of course. I mean, records are meant to be broken. Greatest of all times are meant to be dethroned. I mean, it'll happen. Somebody will pass him in terms of his legendary status. But will it be Mahomes? Well, it could be. He's got the tools. Um, he's got the guts to do it. He's got the arm. He just needs an offensive line to help him. Um, so where do the Chiefs go from here? Um, if I think I said it earlier in the game, but or not early game. I think I said it earlier in the video. I just, congratulations to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They deserve to win this game tonight. Absolutely, no sour grapes here from me. Um, so where do the Chiefs go from here? Look, the Chiefs won the AFC for the second straight year. Arguably, probably should have been three straight AFC championships. Um, but the Chiefs have won the AFC 2 years in a row. Um, they've been to the AFC Championship game 3 straight years. They are the class of the AFC, and that's not debatable. And the team is largely going to be intact next year. They need to get better at the offensive line. Okay, they need to draft some. They need to draft some guys with some nastiness to them. Okay, um, that this center, I think it was the center for Tampa Bay, Jensen, the guy that was. Look, I have no respect for that guy. That guy is a complete clown, um, and he's a dirty player. Um, and he got, I mean, the personal foul on Jones tonight should have been called on Jensen, but it is what it is. The guy who retaliates is the guy that always gets it, but he's always instigating stuff like that. So the Chiefs need guys like that. Honestly, they need guys that are dirty. Okay, hold on. I didn't say dirty. They need guys with a mean streak to them. Guys that got a little edge to them, essentially. And now the Chiefs, they got some bad luck this year, as um, the Canadian doctor. I can never say his last name. Uh, Tardif, Lunare Tardif. I don't know how to say it. It's a hyphenated name. I don't know how to say it. Anyway, the guy that who's a doctor, who's serving on the COVID front lines up in Canada, who opted out this year, and of course Mitchell Schwartz obviously didn't play for most of the season. Those are two big losses. Those are two really good offensive linemen the Chiefs didn't have, and the Chiefs are going to be without Eric Fisher next year too. I mean, he's not going to be back next season. He's going to miss the entire season with the Achilles injury. So the Chiefs have a lot of holes to fill in that offensive line. They need to draft. And they're going to be down at the bottom of the first round. Um, I think what the Chiefs honestly should do, if they want to find a trade partner who wants to get up into the bottom of the first round, sometimes that's where you kind of find your running backs, maybe some some corners that are maybe under the radar. That's where a lot of teams look to kind of pick somebody off like that, or pick a quarterback, who's really good, but they don't want to wait till the second round because they don't want some team that maybe passed on a quarterback at the top of the draft to snag them in the second round. I think the Chiefs could really do a good job of maybe trading back and stockpiling some picks because they need some offensive linemen. And they need to get some offensive linemen in here to grow with Patrick Mahomes. And it was never more evident than tonight when you face a talented defensive line. The Chiefs need more help up front. So that's the first priority they need to do is to get better there. I'm really happy, honestly, with what their corners are doing. I think their safeties are Thornhill and Matthew obviously are more than capable out there. Uh, they could use another guy on the defensive line to get after the quarterback, and they need massive. Excuse me. They need massive help at linebacker. So offensive linemen, linebackers, and another wide receiver. They need another receiver. Mecole Hardman makes big plays here and there, but he played a very poor game here, and he had some big plays in the postseason, but he had some stinkers too. Um, he's just too inconsistent, and the Chiefs need to look at some other options here. Sammy Watkins is getting older, and I don't think he's the same player as he used to be. And Robinson is he's a he's roster filler is what Robinson is. So um, that's that's the bottom line with those guys. The Chiefs need to address the offensive line, linebackers, and maybe grab another receiver. I think that should be their sole focus. Um, they have all this money invested in Patrick Mahomes. They need to protect him. Okay, he's not going to be as sturdy and physical as Tom Brady. Tom Brady obviously has hardly missed any time in his career except for that one season when he blew out his knee when Bernard Pollard hit him, which subsequently changed the whole rule about how you can hit quarterbacks. Um, so that's kind of what I see the Chiefs going from here. I think the Chiefs are going to be the favorite to return to the Super Bowl next season. Barring major injuries, I like what they have at the running back position with Edwards-Helaire. Who knows what's going to happen with the COVID situation? Will Damian Williams come back? Um, but the Chiefs need better offensive linemen. They need some better linebackers. Um, and they just make a couple of those improvements, they'll get right back to the Super Bowl next year. I don't see anybody in the AFC. I mean, maybe the Chargers with Hubert, who he's up and coming, and the Bills with Josh Allen, and then Baker Mayfield with the Browns. I mean, those guys are kind of the up and coming quarterbacks. Are they going to give the Chiefs problems in the league in the playoffs? Yeah, possibly, but um, I think that's going to really be where the action is going to be. I don't see too many other teams. I'm not, even though I went to Mizzou. I don't see Drew Lock really elevating the Broncos up to anything that's worthwhile in the long run. Um, the Raiders, the Raiders are building something interesting out there, but it's going back to they're still the Raiders. I mean, so we'll see. We'll see what happens with them. But San Diego with San Diego, it's Los Angeles. Man, these teams are moving around in my division. I don't even. Um, but the Chargers with Hubert, it's going to be interesting to see how they fare going forward. I mean, he's looked pretty good so far. They think they have their quarterback of the future. We'll see what happens. So, anyway, I want to wrap this up. I kind of wanted to talk about a little more breakdown of some other things in the game, but ultimately it doesn't matter. The Chiefs got their tails handed to them, 31-9. I wanted still to make this video to show that I'm not someone who just makes videos when the Chiefs win, um, and hopefully the Chiefs can overcome this and get right back to the Super Bowl next year. It was an exciting playoff run. It really was. It was an exciting season. It was a weird season, obviously with all the COVID stuff going on. So anyway, congratulations to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and to their fans and to Tom Brady on his seventh Super Bowl ring. Definitely earned it. Greatest quarterback of all time. So anyway, thanks guys for watching this video. Hope you liked it. If you liked it, leave a thumbs up. Leave me a comment. Feel free to reach out to me if you want, and we'll talk to you later. Have a nice day.